There's this profound mystery right at the heart of our daily lives. Something so fundamental, but, well, we often overlook it. Have you ever really paused to think about how our pets, our dogs, our cats, without saying a single word, just seem to understand us on such a deep level? I don't just mean learning routines or tricks, not that at all. No, it's more that vibrant, unspoken dialogue they have with us, a communication that just flows, effortlessly beyond words, touching this kind of shared space, this realm of pure presence.
And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. The key to unlocking that connection, not just with animals, but really understanding ourselves and our world. Well, it turns out it's unveiled by emotions. There's so much more than just, fleeting feelings.
Absolutely. So today, we're doing a deep dive into the fascinating world of emotion. We're guided by insights from Oscar Enrique Muñoz's book, Mastering Mind, specifically Chapter 1, The Guiding Hand of Emotion. Our mission, you could say, is to explore how emotions aren't just feelings, but this fundamental, really pervasive force. It shapes our perception, our interactions, even our survival. They're not just reactions we have. They're like a core part of who we are. Okay, so let's get into this. So let's start right there with that idea about our animal companions. It's so relatable, isn't it? That feeling that your dog or cat just gets you, even when you haven't said anything. It's not about them understanding complex language, obviously. It's more that intuitive thing, that instant understanding when you're just, being together. The book points to this right away. It suggests that this mystery is a doorway, really, a key to understanding something much bigger about our own inner world. It's not training, not conditioning. It's something deeper, more primal, maybe.
Yeah, what's really fascinating there is the idea from the source that emotions allow for a communication flowing effortlessly beyond the confines of articulated words. It suggests this shared realm of pure presence, where understanding happens on a completely different level, a primal level, like you said.
Yeah.
This isn't about learned behaviors, not at all. It's about an intrinsic connection, one that just bypasses the need for language altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. When you look into your pet's eyes, you feel that connection. There's no verbal stuff happening usually. It's understanding on a different frequency, a nonverbal resonance. And it can be incredibly powerful. It really challenges our assumption that words are the only way, or even the main way, we connect.
It really makes you wonder, though, if this unspoken dialogue is so strong with animals, what about our human relationships? What happens when we rely only on words? Are we missing a whole layer of understanding? It really does challenge that reliance on verbal communication as the be-all and end-all. When that unspoken part is missing or it gets misunderstood between people, well, and it can lead to feeling really disconnected, right? Like you're not truly seen or heard, even if someone's saying all the right words. It's that emotional resonance underneath it all. That's what builds the strong bonds or, creates the biggest divides. It reminds us there's a whole world of feeling being exchanged beneath the surface.
That's a great point, and I'd encourage you listening to think about your own experiences. Have you had those moments with a friend, family, maybe even a pet, where you just knew what was going on without words? Maybe it was just a look, across a room when things were tough, or a shared silence that said everything, or just a touch, a simple touch that conveyed empathy far better than any sentence could. Those moments, they tap right into that shared realm of pure presence the source talks about. It's immediate, visceral, really potent. It shows there's this other layer of communication we often just ignore.
And it's not just in those special moments, is it? The source really emphasizes that the very pulse of human emotional experience beats in perfect synchronicity with the most common currents of life itself. Whether we're awake or even in our dreams, it says, this isn't some niche topic for therapists. It's everywhere. In everything, every breath, every choice, every interaction. It's like this continuous undercurrent, always there, always influencing us, often without us even realizing it, like background music, kind of shaping the mood all the time.
Precisely. It means our emotional state isn't just an occasional thing reacting to events. It's ongoing, dynamic, flowing with the rhythm of our whole existence. And most adults, as the source notes, have this kind of sweeping intuitive sense of what emotions collectively are. We just sort of know. But we also have a sharper, more intimate knowing of each specific feeling, right? How it resonates within our own life story. We know what anger feels like, or joy, or sadness. Even if we couldn't give you a textbook definition or list the neurotransmitters involved, we recognize them inside us, and we know how much they impact our reality, how they guide our responses and shape how we see the world.
Okay, so if our emotional pulse really does sync up with all of life, what does that imply? About empathy, maybe? our connection to everything around us. It suggests it's bigger than just our personal feelings. It points towards a kind of interconnectedness, maybe, allowing us to resonate with others, with the world. It hints at a deeper role for emotions, almost ecological.
Absolutely. That synchronicity is a powerful sign of our capacity for empathy, for interconnection. If we're constantly tuned into these currents of life, it means we can potentially understand and share experiences deeply. With other people, sure, but maybe even non-humans or the environment itself. Think about how a mood can sweep through a crowd, right? Or that sense of peace you might feel in nature. These are subtle signs of that emotional synchronicity. And, conversely, if we ignore it, if we try to block it out, focus only on the rational, the material, well, that could absolutely lead to feeling disconnected, alienated, not just from others, but from our own nature, from life itself. It's really a call to be present, isn't it? To feel, to engage with the whole picture.
And for you, the listener, just take a moment. Think about your day. How often are you actually aware of that pulse of emotion, guiding your interactions, your choices, even maybe your dreams? Are you listening to that unspoken dialogue within you and around you? It's subtle, but the source suggests it's incredibly powerful, worth paying attention to. Now, this next point really stuck with me. The source talks about this old story, this ancient resonant tale of the seeker untouched by fear. This person, right, no matter how much people explain fear, used logic. They just couldn't get it, couldn't grasp it intellectually. It highlights a really critical limit of just thinking about emotions, doesn't it? Suggests some knowledge needs a different kind of engagement.
Yes, this mythic voyager, they willingly sought out experiences. They were hoping to unveil fear's true visage, as the source puts it, until finally its raw apprehension dawned. And the key insight here is profound, really. Our deepest understanding of fear, and indeed of every other emotion, is forged in the crucible of direct experience. All the ideas we have about it later, the definitions, the frameworks, they all emerge from this profound wellspring of encounter. This is such a critical point. You could read every textbook, memorize definitions, analyze cases, but that intellectual grasp, it's superficial. Until it's grounded in lived experience, that phrase, crucible of direct experience, is not just poetry. It implies something intense, transformative, encountering the emotion firsthand, letting it move through you. That changes you in a way studying just can't.
So why is just thinking about it not enough for emotions? How is emotional knowledge different from, say, factual knowledge? It feels like a really fundamental difference we often gloss over, especially now when we value data and facts and thinking things through so much.
Well, factual knowledge, like knowing the capital of France, where the water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. You can learn that through explanation, observation, logic. It exists kind of outside your immediate subjective feeling, right? Emotional knowledge, though, it's inherently subjective, internal. You can describe the symptoms of fear, heart racing, sweaty palms, tunnel vision, but those are just descriptions of fear. To understand fear, that's feeling the jolt, the adrenaline, the gut clench, the urge to run or fight. The intellectual frameworks are like maps. Useful, they help you get oriented, give you an overview, but they're absolutely not the territory itself. The territory is always the direct experience, the visceral feeling, the lived moment. Without that, the map is just lines on paper.
Right. So you can read books about grief, learn the stages, study the psychology, but you don't truly understand grief until you experience that profound aching loss yourself. Or you can study happiness, the neuroscience, the chemicals, but you don't know happiness until you feel that pure, unadulterated joy in a real moment, connection, achievement, whatever it is. It's that qualitative difference, isn't it? That internal felt knowing that concepts can only point toward.
Exactly. Or think about love. We
Right.
talk about it endlessly, analyze it sociologically, psychologically, romantic love, platonic, familial. But until you've actually loved someone, felt that vulnerability, that deep affection, that intertwining of lives, the concept is just, well, a concept. It's like trying to understand how a mango tastes by reading its nutritional label and chemical breakdown. The real understanding is in the tasting, the unique flavor, the texture. The source is clear. Emotions are a form of knowledge you acquire through living, through feeling.
So what does this mean for us, for you listening? If direct experience is so crucial, how does that change how you try to understand complex emotions, your own or someone else's? Does it make you maybe lean into difficult feelings sometimes instead of trying to analyze them away to actually feel what's happening?
It raises a really important question for our modern world, which is so focused on cognition, isn't it? Does our emphasis on data, on analysis, on objective facts, does it sometimes accidentally distance us from real emotional understanding? We often try to figure out our emotions like they're a puzzle solved from the outside, rather than allowing ourselves to fully feel them, sit with them, learn from them. Connecting this to the bigger picture, it really underlines the value of living fully, of embracing the whole spectrum of human experience, even the uncomfortable bits, the messy bits, and engaging with our emotions, not just theorizing about them. It's about shifting from head to heart, in a way. Recognizing that genuine emotional wisdom comes from inside the experience. It requires an experiential wisdom alongside the intellectual kind.
And this idea, it seems like it could apply beyond just personal feelings, right? What about understanding big social issues? Or even art, like to really get poverty or injustice or understand an artistic movement, do you need some kind of direct experience or at least deep empathetic engagement? Something more than just stats or history. It suggests you need to immerse yourself more.
Oh, I absolutely think it does. For social issues, yeah, it means going beyond the headlines, engaging with the stories, the lived experiences of people affected. It's not enough to just know the facts intellectually. True understanding often needs that empathetic connection, trying to imagine or witness the reality, which then sparks an emotional response. And for art, you can study art history, techniques, symbolism, but the real appreciation of a painting, music, a play, that comes from letting it evoke something in you, emotionally. It's the feeling, the resonance, the way it moves you, the awe, sadness, joy it sparks. That's the deepest understanding. It goes beyond just critique. It's experiencing the beauty or tragedy or wonder that makes the art truly meaningful. It connects the creator, the art, and you, the observer.
Okay, so given how fundamental emotions are, you'd think we'd have a really clear, solid definition of what an emotion actually is. But the source presents this fascinating challenge, almost like a riddle. It asks, one might legitimately pose a profound question regarding the conceptual leap from distinct affective states, such as fear or anger, to the encompassing, overarching idea of emotion itself. Like, what's the actual bond that ties them all together? It's like trying to define color beyond just listing red, blue, green. What's the essence of emotion?
And this is where it gets beautifully tricky, almost paradoxical. We might struggle to pin down a strict definition, sure, but the source stresses that it's by no means alien to our lived experience. In fact, it says it's sufficiently familiar to function as a potent preliminary referent. We just kind of accept this grouping of all these different phenomena, fear, joy, anger, sadness, under the single heading of emotion. Why? Because that's how the concept has been bequeathed to us by the rich, often ambiguous tradition of our Lebenswelt. That term, Lebenswelt, is key here. It means the life world, our lived experience. Our understanding of emotion doesn't come from a dictionary or abstract logic. It comes from being immersed in life. Collectively, historically, personally, is woven into the fabric of how we live, passed down, understood implicitly more than explicitly defined.
So it's not just some abstract idea, but something deeply embedded in how we actually live and interact. Kind of an inherited understanding. Like our ancestors, our communities, our own lives, they've all shaped this intuitive grasp, even if we can't write down a perfect definition. It's knowledge transmitted just by living.
Exactly. The source uses analogies like time or number. We use them constantly, right? Our lives revolve around them. Societies are built on them. But try getting a philosopher or physicist to give you a completely rigorous, universally accepted definition. It's surprisingly hard. Yet, we manage just fine day to day. Emotions are similar. We can define fear as, say, a response to threat, anger to injustice, joy to good outcomes. But what's the underlying quality? The common thread that makes them all emotion? The source suggests that unifying thing is just implicit in our lived experience. We intuitively know they belong together, even if we can't articulate the precise how or the ultimate philosophical common ground. It's a functional understanding, a shared agreement forged through living.
So even without that perfect definition, each of you already navigates with an operative understanding. It's less about having a scientific formula and more about this deeply ingrained functional awareness. It lets us tell emotions apart, respond to them effectively. It's practical knowledge, really, honed just by living and interacting, often without even thinking about it.
Precisely. Unless you have a very specialized interest in, say, psychology or philosophy, it's a concept that's far more readily usable in the flux of daily apprehension than susceptible to rigorous, definitive articulation. It really highlights the practical, immediate usefulness of our emotional understanding in everyday life over needing intellectual precision. We don't need to ace a test on defining happiness to feel it or to recognize it in someone else. We use emotions constantly as guides, as a language, as a basic way to make sense of the world long before we try to analyze them. That operative understanding is what lets us navigate complex social cues, interpret intentions, make countless decisions based on our feelings and others.
And how might embracing that operative understanding free you, the listener? Maybe take off the pressure of needing perfect definitions to handle your emotional world? Does it maybe allow for more fluidity, more acceptance of your own feelings, instead of always trying to label and dissect them, which, let's be honest, can sometimes get in the way?
Oh, it absolutely can. That pressure to perfectly define and categorize every single feeling can actually stop us from just experiencing and processing them. If we trust our operative understanding, it frees us up to engage with our emotional landscape as it actually is, in all its rich messiness. Rather than forcing it into neat boxes, it encourages us to acknowledge our emotions are real, valid, functional, even if they don't fit a tidy label. It fosters a more intuitive relationship with our inner lives, more acceptance, more presence, maybe less constant analysis. It's recognizing that sometimes the deepest understanding isn't about naming it, but just being with it.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting for me. We've talked about emotions being intuitive, experiential, personal, but the source is very clear. They're far from being mere solitary sensations. They are imbued with the potent dye of cultural determination. This adds a whole other powerful layer, suggesting emotions aren't just individual, they're deeply communal too.
Yes, this communal artistry, as the source calls it, bestows upon them a name, a specific context, and a layered interpretation, weaving them into the larger societal fabric. This is absolutely crucial. It means how we perceive, how we express, maybe even how we feel emotions is profoundly influenced by the society we're in, the language we use, the values we absorb. Think about it. A certain look or gesture might mean anger here, but maybe confusion somewhere else. And the rules about showing emotion in public, they vary wildly. Some cultures encourage big, expressive displays of grief, right? While others value stoicism, keeping it buttoned up. These aren't just minor etiquette things. They actually shape the experience of the emotion itself within that cultural setting.
So it's not just what we call it, but how we're taught to experience it, express it, even when it's okay to feel it. Can you give some examples, like emotions or maybe nuances that are really culturally specific, things that don't even translate easily?
Sure. Take the German word Schadenfreude, that pleasure you get from someone else's misfortune. Now, maybe people everywhere feel something like that sometimes. But having a specific common word for it in German, that highlights its cultural recognition, maybe a more open acknowledgement of it. Or saudade in Portuguese, that's deep melancholic longing for something or someone absent, maybe knowing it won't come back. It's a mix of nostalgia, sadness, hope. It doesn't really have a single English equivalent. These aren't just slightly different flavors of sad or happy. They're distinct emotional landscapes, named and cultivated within a specific culture. Language and stories literally carve out these experiences. Another one is amai in Japanese, that desire to be loved, to depend on someone, expecting indulgence. It's a positive social emotion there, but hard to translate directly or understand fully in, say, many Western contexts.
And the source goes further, saying, because emotions are an inherent thread in the process of enculturation, that's the process of how we become who we are in our community.
Well,
They become inextricably bound to our collective myths.
that sounds incredibly powerful. Like emotions are shaped by our culture's deepest stories.
It's a profound idea. This sacred bond engenders an unconscious fixation where the ineffable currents of our deepest narratives are etched into the very substratum of our being, silently shaping our responses in ways our waking mind rarely perceives. Okay, what does that mean? Essentially, the deep stories, the beliefs, the values of our community, its myths, its history, its worldview, they don't just influence our thoughts, they literally sculpt our emotional responses. At an unconscious level, we inherit these emotional scripts from our culture, and they dictate how we're likely to react emotionally in certain situations, often without us having any clue why. These are deep patterns, like emotional reflexes, passed down, shaping us before we even develop conscious reasoning. Wow, that is a huge aha moment. If our emotional reactions are shaped by these collective myths, maybe that explains some deep societal biases, or shared emotional reactions in a group that seem almost automatic. And if it's unconscious, how do we even become aware of these fixations? Can we challenge them?
It certainly explains a lot about group behavior, societal dynamics. Think about how different cultures might react to success or failure. One culture's myths might focus on individual triumph, leading to admiration for success and maybe shame around failure. Another might emphasize collective effort, humility, process over outcome, leading to very different emotional responses. These aren't just intellectual stances. They're felt experiences rooted in those deep narratives. How to become more aware? Well, the first step is always self-reflection, critical thinking, asking, why do I feel this way in this situation? Then exploring the cultural stories that might have shaped that pattern. It's also about looking at group reactions and asking, okay, what underlying myths are driving this? Are they still helpful today? That awareness is the first step towards more emotional freedom, more conscious responses.
So for you, listening, think about your own background, your culture, your family stories, the collective narratives of your community. How might they influence how you show joy, handle anger, react to fear? Often without you realizing it. It's about understanding not just what you feel, but why you feel it that specific way, shaped by this invisible cultural tapestry. It pushes us beyond just personal feelings to see the bigger system. Okay, shifting here slightly. The source then offers what it calls a more expansive understanding of basic emotions. For our initiatory voyage into the mind's profound depths, it describes them as primary currents of consciousness, intrinsically woven into the very fabric of the biological organism. So this takes us from culture, which shapes expression, right down to our biology, our evolution.
Yes, and this perspective is crucial. It tells us emotions aren't just psychological things that show up later, or purely cultural creations. They are deeply rooted in our biology, developed over vast stretches of evolutionary time as fundamental survival tools. They've unfolded through eons, the source says, as the foundational protocols for both the reception of life's incessant stimulations and the orchestration of our responses within the ceaseless scenarios of internal and external survival. Think of them like your body's operating system, or maybe a set of pre-programmed, super-efficient survival apps refined over millions of years. When something happens, a loud noise, a sudden movement, a kind look, a bad smell, our biology has this ancient, wired-in protocol for how to take that in and coordinate a response that helps us survive and thrive. They're like internal guidance systems.
So foundational protocols, how does that work exactly? Are emotions like built-in algorithms for staying alive? And what's a basic example? Fight or flight comes to mind for fear, obviously, but are there others beyond just immediate danger?
Yeah, exactly. Fight or flight is the classic example. You perceive a threat, fear kicks in, floods you with adrenaline, heart races, senses sharpen, prepares you to fight or run. That's not learned. It's an ancient biological program for survival. But it's not just immediate threats. Think about disgust. That's a protocol too. It triggers a strong aversion to certain tastes, smells, sights, basically stopping us from eating poison or getting near disease. Super useful for survival. Or think about joy and attachment. They encourage social bonding, cooperation, group cohesion. Absolutely vital for a species like ours that thrives in groups. Collective survival. Even sadness can be seen this way. It often elicits empathy and help from others, right? Or it signals a need to withdraw, reflect, conserve energy. Both can be adaptive in the long run. These emotions aren't random. There's sophisticated adaptive responses that have proven their worth over millennia.
And these processes, it says, are inherently guided by the luminous dance of our perceptions and the emergent concepts they forge, all critically relevant for the enduring survival of both the individual soul's unique manifestation and the harmonious balance of the collective. So our interpretation of what's happening, our perception, directly triggers the right emotional program, like a feedback loop.
That's right. Our perceptions, what we see, hear, feel, etc., they lead directly to concepts. Our brain making sense of the input. So perceiving a dark shape might lead to the concept threat, which instantly triggers the fear protocol, all those survival mechanisms. Perceiving a warm smile might lead to the concept safe or friendly, triggering joy or comfort, encouraging connection. And crucially, it's not just about me surviving. The source emphasizes the harmonious balance of the collective. Our emotions, especially ones like empathy, compassion, cooperation, they bind us together. They help groups survive by fostering that cohesion, mutual support. And you can see the flip side too, right? Misaligned emotions, lack of emotional intelligence in a group, they can quickly lead to conflict breakdown. Yeah. That's how vital emotions are for society's balance.
So if emotions are that central to collective survival, what happens when these protocols get, well, misaligned in a society today? How does knowing about this evolutionary role help us deal with modern challenges, especially since our world is so complex now and threats aren't always, a lion in the grass?
That's a critical question with huge implications. If a society's collective emotional programs are out of whack, if fear is constantly triggered by others who aren't really a threat, or if empathy gets shut down in favor of ruthless competition, it can lead to massive distrust, fragmentation, breakdown. Understanding that these are ancient biological systems designed for physical survival helps us see when they might be overreacting, or even being deliberately manipulated by modern information, by cultural narratives. It encourages us to pause, look beyond the immediate gut reaction, and think about the deeper evolutionary purpose of that emotion. We can ask, is this feeling actually helping our survival and collective well-being now, in this context? Or is it an old system misfiring in a world it wasn't built for? That perspective allows for a more compassionate, maybe more strategic approach to social problems, recognizing that many issues come from these deep emotional patterns that might not be adaptive anymore.
So for you, the listener, think about those immediate emotional reactions you have, that gut feeling, that flash of anger, that wave of anxiety. Could they be echoes of ancient survival programs? How does that reframe why you feel what you feel? Even in situations that aren't physically dangerous, like getting a sharp email or seeing a disturbing news story, it really gives a different, deeper perspective on your everyday emotional world. Highlights the incredible ancient wisdom packed into our biology. Okay, one more really important point the source makes. It draws a very specific line around what it calls emotional pathology. It's not just any difficult feeling, and this feels like a really important clarification, especially today when we can be quick to label intense feelings as problems or illnesses.
No, it's quite precise, and that precision matters for clear thinking and, frankly, responsible understanding. The author finds it more illuminating, more profoundly true, to reserve the appellation emotional pathology for those neural activations that necessitate external biochemical intervention to restore the organism's homeostatic equilibrium. Okay, that's a mouthful, but it's a very targeted definition. It means we're talking about a genuine physiological imbalance in the brain or body, something significant enough that it requires medical or pharmaceutical help-specific drugs, maybe targeted neurotherapies to bring the body's systems, especially its neurochemistry, back into balance, back to normal functioning, homeostasis. It's about a biological system that's truly out of kilter and needs that specific external correction.
So this definition would specifically exclude things like, say, general sadness after a major loss, or periods of anxiety during really stressful times, or feeling angry when you're treated unfairly. Those are all normal, right? Sometimes really hard, but normal parts of being human. It's not saying they aren't difficult, just not pathological in this very specific biological sense.
Exactly. Feeling intense sadness after a loss. That's a deeply normal, even necessary part of grieving, processing, adapting. It doesn't automatically mean you need biochemical intervention. Yeah. Likewise, feeling anxious before a big exam or angry when someone violates your boundaries, those are natural adaptive signals. They tell you something important about your world or your inner state. Yes, they can be intense, unpleasant. You might need coping strategies, therapy, lifestyle changes to manage them. But they don't, by this definition, represent a fundamental biological breakdown needing external chemical recalibration. This definition helps us distinguish between, say, a psychological challenge you can work through versus a physiological condition needing medical treatment. It respects the huge range of normal human emotional experience.
So why is making this distinction so important? Why narrow the definition of emotional pathology like that? What's the benefit of being so precise?
Because, as the source says, this narrow definition permits us to turn our gaze towards the inherent, meaning-making, and formative role of emotion in the unfolding, ceaseless mystery of being itself. If we don't label every intense or uncomfortable feeling as a pathology, we can better appreciate the vast, vital spectrum of human emotion and its purpose. If we pathologize everything strong, we risk seeing emotions just as things to be cured or suppressed. Instead of understanding them, integrating them, learning from them, we might just ignore the vital messages they carry. And it does raise that important question for society today. Are we too quick to pathologize normal human feelings? Do we reach for a label or a pill instead of engaging with the emotion's message or accepting its role in our growth? It shifts the focus from dysfunction to function, from illness to potential wisdom.
And for you, listening, how might this perspective change how you see your own challenging emotions? Maybe that period of deep sadness wasn't a pathology in the strict sense, but a natural, formative process of grieving, of adapting. Or maybe that anxiety wasn't an illness, but a really powerful signal your system was sending about an unmet need, or stress, or a situation needing your attention.
It absolutely can encourage more acceptance, can't it? Acceptance of the natural formative role emotions play. It shifts the view from something is wrong with me to this feeling is part of the dynamic landscape of being human. It invites you to listen to what your emotions might be telling you, to understand their meaning-making function, to appreciate that even when they're uncomfortable, they serve a purpose in your journey. That perspective can build resilience, self-compassion. It allows for a richer, more authentic relationship with your own inner world, maybe more understanding toward others experiencing strong feelings too. It moves us towards a more holistic view.
So wrapping up this deep dive, what does this all mean for you? We've gone from that intuitive language of pets all the way down to the deep evolutionary roots of our emotions and how culture shapes them unconsciously. We've seen emotions aren't just fleeting things, but truly the guiding hand in, well, pretty much every part of our lives, our understanding, our communication, our survival.
We've learned that real understanding comes from direct experience, not just thinking about it. And even without a perfect definition, our lived experience gives us a practical, working understanding. And by carefully defining pathology, we make space to appreciate the inherent, meaning-making, formative role emotions play in the whole unfolding mystery of being. They're not just stuff that happens to us. They're integral to who we are and how we navigate everything, moment by moment.
So it leaves us with a pretty powerful thought, doesn't it? If emotions are these ancient biological programs for survival and connection, if they're woven so deeply into our culture and our unconscious stories, and if they have this inherent meaning-making job, what untapped wisdom is sitting there within these primary currents of consciousness that we could consciously explore? How might engaging more deeply, more acceptingly with our full range of emotions help us navigate this complex world with more insight, more resilience? How could it foster more harmony within ourselves and with each other? What will you do with this perspective on the guiding hand of emotion?